A lot of you are probably saying, am I on the right channel? Who is this guy? No sunglasses, t-shirt, what's happening? Let me know in the comments, guys. Give me a little vote. Should I do these videos without sunglasses when it's not crazy bright out here? Sometimes I'm so used to wearing them, I'll put them on anyways, but when it's nice out like this and it's not like crazy sun in my eyes, I can go without them. And temperatures are comfortable, don't need to wear a tank top. What do you know? You know, the funny thing is I've seen more comments in the last few months saying, oh, this has just become a gloom and doom channel. Well, I guess it all depends on how you look at things, guys, because I feel like I'm reporting a lot of good news lately, and it just keeps on coming. Because the latest round of good news is that rents are continuing to drop in many different areas. Even though the median asking rent price is up year over year, 4.8%, in a lot of different areas, it's starting to come down, which is much needed relief for many different tenants across the country. The reality is, rent still costs 20% more than it did a year ago. You're basically seeing the same dynamic that we see in the for sale market. Prices got way too high, and now things are starting to come back to a more normal reality. And if you want to know where to look for the best rent deals in 2023, you should be checking out cities like this, because the number one on the list, Minneapolis, they're down 8.5%. Oklahoma City, 6.4% down. Phoenix is down 5%. Houston's down 4.6%. Milwaukee's down 4.1%. Chicago's down 3.6%. Baltimore's down 2.1%. Austin, Texas is down 2%. Birmingham, Alabama's down 1.8%. LA's down 1.5%. Virginia Beach is down 1%. Jacksonville's down 0.8%. New Orleans is down. Las Vegas is down by like 0.5%. So rents are falling in a lot of these places, guys, but rent is also going up in different areas as well. So you probably want to avoid those areas if you're looking to get a good deal. Now, I'm not going to go over all the places that are going up. I have the article linked down below if you guys want to take a look at this. But to me, all of this is good news. I don't see how even in one way that any of this is gloom and doom, because renters have been getting squeezed for the past couple years, right? And home buyers have been getting squeezed for the past couple years. And now that everything is starting to return to a somewhat normal feel for things, this is great news, guys. How can anybody look at this and say this is bad? I don't know, but I guess those people are just miserable, and they just love making dirty comments on YouTube. Because for me, no matter how bad things get, I always try to look at the positive side. Like today, I didn't want to shoot this video in this park. I'm here in Pine Tree Park in Miami Beach. I wanted to go to a new park that I haven't been to before and take you guys there, but I'm shooting this, it's Friday, and guess what? The traffic here is off the charts, guys. It took me almost half an hour to get here from my place, and I live like 10 minutes tops down the street. So that just goes to show you how bad the traffic was today, and I just couldn't make it to the spot I wanted to. You know, I'm sitting there stuck in traffic, and I hate that. You know, I really hate being stuck in traffic. But I looked at this as like, well, this isn't so bad, because I'm sitting in my nice Jeep, you know, it runs, I'm not broke down, I have no hurry to get anywhere, you know, I'm gonna make it eventually. I didn't have to commute into the office, you know, I'm getting ready to make a cool video for you guys. What is there to really complain about? So I just kind of cooled it down, waited patiently, listened to some music in the car, and here I am. And here's more good news for you, and I'm just full of the good news today, guys. Home sellers, in many cases, are starting to make a comeback with seller financing. And if you don't know what that is, it's basically the same thing as when you get a mortgage on a property, but instead of going to get a mortgage, the seller provides the financing for you at an agreed upon interest rate. You decide how much the rate's gonna be, how long it's gonna take to pay them back, etc. And then usually it's like a window of like 5 years, right? You have a window of 5 years, and then you're supposed to pay them back entirely, which at that point, usually you'll have to go out and get a conventional mortgage for the property. But the reason that sellers are doing this right now is because sales are taking a nosedive, right? Nobody wants to buy in this environment. interest rates are too high, combined with the prices making the payments unaffordable. So the incentive for home sellers to do seller financing is to get their home sold, hopefully for the price that they want. And if you think like, oh, this is just to benefit the seller and they're gonna be the ones, coming out ahead and it's just to trick the buyers into buying the house, it's not so fast, guys. This comes with some very big risks for the seller as well. And people who are willing to do this right now are probably really wanting to get out of this property for whatever reason. Because check this out, the average rate for default on a seller financing deal is quite a bit higher than for a conventional mortgage. And the reason for that is probably because the seller doesn't go through the rigorous underwriting process and qualifying process that a normal lender will do to ultimately determine the risk score for a buyer. So sellers who want to do these seller financing deals and just get out of the property are far more likely to accept it from basically just anyone who can come up with the initial down payment versus a bank that's going to, want a blood sample from you to make sure, which genetic heritage you're from before they give you the loan. This used to be all full of these trees here that were just overgrown and everything was just kind of messed up here, and they trimmed this down quite a bit. I don't know exactly why or what happened, but the nice thing is now you can kind of see the water as we're walking behind here, so that's pretty neat. But check this out, if you're a seller and you're looking to do seller financing and the buyer that you sell the property to defaults on the loan, now you have to go through the standard foreclosure process just like a regular lender would have to, which is a huge bummer because not only is it lengthy, but it's also expensive. So like I said, this comes with some risk to the seller as well. And it's not just like, oh, take over my property, I'm desperate to just get anybody in here, because the seller is taking on that massive risk that if the buyer doesn't pay, they're going to have to go through the standard foreclosure process just like a bank would. And that's not a place that any seller wants to find themselves. But why is this good news? It's good news because it means the housing market is turning around, guys. That's how I look at this. All these signs that we're talking about here are all signs the housing market's turning around. And one thing that a lot of people say that, oh, prices are going to remain high because the rents are high, and as long as the rents are high, the home prices are going to stay high. Well, those are falling, guys. The rents are falling. The home prices are falling. And think about this. The more that rents fall, the more incentivizing it is for people to go out and rent than it is to buy, especially as renting becomes cheaper than buying. And the good thing about that is it brings down home prices even further, because what happens is buyer demand will continue to fall as rentals become more affordable. And a lot of people are not going to be wanting to go out and buy in an environment like this where everything is uncertain, when you can just rent for a year and take the wait and see approach, which I know a lot of you are doing right now. So you really have to look at the housing market as a whole, that the rental market definitely has an impact on the for sale market, because the more people that decide to rent, the less people you're going to see buying, which is ultimately just going to increase how fast the home prices are going to come down across the country. If you find an area where rental prices are coming down, you can almost guarantee that coming next is going to be home prices going down in those same areas. So make sure to pay attention to that. Now, I'm sure many of you have seen by now that the December inflation report came in at 6.5%, which is like maybe the third time in a row now, or maybe fourth time in a row it came in lower month over month that we get these reports. And a lot of people are just jumping for joy for this, especially, people who are very bullish on the economy, thinking that, well, this whole thing is over, inflation's getting back under control. What is there to worry about? But here's the thing, guys, you have to pay attention to who's in charge of the rate hikes and what they're saying. So who's that? The Fed, okay? What they're saying is that they don't expect us to hit the 2% inflation target until well into 2024. So think about that for a minute. It just turned 2023. So we got a whole year, 2023, where inflation likely will not hit the Fed's 2% target, which also highly likely means that interest rates are going to remain high throughout 2023, because the problem with this is the financial markets are right away celebrating this, thinking that the Fed's actually going to pivot and reverse their policy and start reducing interest rates as soon as the end of the year. But they've come out time and time again saying that that's not going to happen. We're going to continue with rate increases this year, and once we reach our terminal funds rate, we're going to keep it there until we have determined that inflation is starting to go down to the level that we want to see. And 6.5% is not the level they want to see. And one important thing that everybody needs to remember with this is when you hear these numbers like, oh, inflation's going down, the peak was 9.1%, now it's 6.5%, it doesn't mean that things are getting cheaper, guys. What it means is it's not getting as expensive as quickly anymore. That's what these reports mean. Just like the home prices being up year over year, it means that it's still more expensive than it was a year ago, and that's exactly what these inflation numbers means. It means that things are still 6.5% more expensive than they were a year ago. That's what we're talking about here. And the thing I find fascinating about this is the two big things that are coming in and making these inflation reports go down are gas prices and the cost of new and used cars. Now, obviously, those two things are very closely correlated, and the interesting thing about it is it's predicted that gas is going to go back up to over $4 a gallon later this year. You know, we were using our reserves and things like that to keep gas prices lower. Well, you're starting to see the price at the pump start to tick back up again, and it's only January. And it's predicted that by the time summer comes, those prices are going to be well over $4 a gallon again. And that's another thing that people need to understand, that these inflation reports coming down could be temporary. There is a high probability that we could see it spike back up once these things that are becoming a little bit cheaper for the moment go back up, okay? And it's very highly likely that they will go back up. But all these investors are expecting the Fed to just do 2 quarter-point rate hikes for this year, and that's it. And the federal funds rate is going to be sitting below 5%, when they already said that their goal is to get it to 5.25%. And it's to the point where Jerome Powell is saying, like, these guys aren't listening. And that's a concern, because he's saying that the more optimistic these guys are, then the more that's going to drive up stock prices and bond yields. And both of those trends are going to support faster economic growth, which means that the Fed is going to have to be even more aggressive with their rate policy. So basically, these guys are in a fight with each other, you know? The investors want to believe that everything's going to turn around very soon, and the Fed is saying not so fast. So, and remember, those guys are in charge. The investors are not in charge. And the minutes from the Fed's December meeting, out of all 19 Federal Reserve policymakers, all of them said that they don't see any rate cuts coming from the Fed this year. So why is the futures market, why is the stock market not listening to this? I have no idea. Maybe it's just false hope. They just are hoping so badly that they just turn around and you know, start cutting rates just so that way everybody doesn't go broke. But it doesn't look like that's going to happen so far. And one quick last thing on inflation, they're saying it's 6.5%, right? But when you go to Shadow Stats and you look at the graph of how inflation was calculated in 1990 and 1980 respectively, if we went by 1990 standards, it would be hovering close to around 10% right now. But if we went by 1980 CPI calculations, then it would still be around close to 15%, guys, probably in the 14.5% range as of right now. So that's the interesting thing about all this. And it turns out it's in the government's best interest to underreport inflation, because it's basically a silent tax on all of us. If they say inflation is not as bad as it really is, then people are actually still paying more for things and not getting the wage increases that they need to survive, which ultimately makes all of us poorer. Now, we all know that homeowners insurance has been a major issue in Florida for the last few years, and there was a new report that came out today that shows all of the Florida counties who has the cheapest homeowners insurance and who has the most expensive homeowners insurance. And I'm going to link this down below for you guys, for anybody who's been wanting to buy real estate here, so that way you can go check this out for yourself and see where you're likely to get the best deals when it comes to having a low insurance rate. And no surprise, the most expensive one is Monroe County down by the Keys, and followed up real closely to that is Miami-Dade County where I live. Average yearly property insurance here in Miami-Dade is $53.91 a year. Palm Beach County is right behind it at $52.47. Broward County is right behind there, $51.64. Then you got Martin County, Walton County, and Franklin County, Collier County, Indian River County, and Gulf County. Those are the top 10 most expensive places to have homeowners insurance in Florida. And the cheapest county to have homeowners insurance in Florida is Sumter County, which is over by the Villages. In case you guys don't know where that is, it's kind of up in the northern part of Florida, in the center part of the state. And that's a pretty good place to be looking in if you want to buy real estate in Florida this year. So go check this list out, guys, if you want to buy a property in Florida. And don't forget, I have real estate services available for anyone who does need a real estate agent anywhere in the country. So just remember, that's always available to you for no extra charge down in the description, okay? Now, if you think the housing market's in bad shape here, the situation just seems to be so much worse in Canada. And they have something going on there that I'd never heard of before. It's called power of sale. And basically what this is, it's when somebody has a very short-term mortgage on their property and the lender basically calls in the loan, says, hey, you got to pay us back now because property values are dropping off a cliff over there so quickly that these guys are worried that they're going to be on the hook for this and not be able to get their money back. So they're just saying, nope, you got to pay us back now. So basically how this works is somebody has a 1-year mortgage, they probably got a low rate, right? But these private lenders that gave them this low rate, you know, work off of floating debt, just like many other companies do. And since interest rates have gone up everywhere, including in Canada, these guys are struggling as well. So the 1-year mortgage comes due, and if the buyer can't pay them back in full and get refinancing somewhere else, what they do then is called the power of sale, and they force them to list the house for sale, and you know, the proceeds go towards paying back the loan. So it gets pretty aggressive over there with people that basically made these mistakes and jumped into all this FOMO buying and just said, I gotta have a house, I gotta have a house. Prices are going up, it's never gonna end. I'm never gonna be able to get a house if I don't get one now. And as you can see, guys, patience is always key, because these people are getting completely reamed over there right now. And here's what a listing title can look like over there, which I thought was fascinating. They will say something like, help, power of sale, must sell in 30 days, or power of sale, back on market, deal fell through. This is an excellent buying opportunity for anybody who lives over there in Canada, and people are getting good deals on this, guys. Check this out. There was a 3-bedroom, 4-bathroom house over there that sold in 2021 for $1,260,000, okay? And then fast forward to December in 2022, this was one of these power of sale properties. The buyer picked it up for $919,000. So no doubt is $919K still expensive, okay? Of course it is. But they just got a $300,000 discount on that property in about a year's time, which is extraordinary. And I think that's super fascinating because you see all these home flippers here that are still trying to double their money from purchases just 1 year ago, thinking that somehow that's still going to happen, guys. They haven't gotten the memo that the show is over. So if you live in Canada, if you live in the UK, if you live in the US, if you live in Australia, if you live in New Zealand, all these places, there's a high probability that by the end of this year, housing is going to be cheaper where you live than it is right now. This is when you're going to see patience pay off. People who did not buy into this FOMO real estate market, thinking that if I don't get a house now, I'll never get one, are being rewarded during this time. Not to get too philosophical, but I feel like this is a principle that applies to life in general, because when you have this shortage mindset that everything is limited and I need to get mine before there's none left, this is the type of thing that happens to people like that, versus having like the abundance mindset, thinking that there's plenty to go around for everyone, and if I just wait and I'm patient, I'm gonna get something that's good for me. And that's what you're starting to see happen with people right now, and I'm happy to hear that. So anyone who thinks that's gloom and doom and it's bad news that people are finally starting to get rewarded for their patience is insane. So I'm happy to hear all this. Hopefully you guys are too. And if you are, make sure you hit the bell notification down below. That way YouTube will alert you every time I post a new video. If you don't want to wait, check out my next one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.